Hello everyone, in today's video I wanted to show you the best items in Act 1 that you could have easily missed. The beauty of those items is that even though you find them in Act 1, they can actually serve you for much longer than that. Because some of those items are very versatile and can help you flesh out your builds. I will of course provide what the items do and also the locations you can find them in. So without further ado, let us begin. The first item we will talk about is the Warped Headband of Intellect. This item is great especially for a hybrid character, for example if you will want to make a fighter wizard, because you can focus on your fighting stats and ignore intellect entirely, because what this item does is increase your intellect to 17. However, remember that what the item does is set your intellect to 17, so even if you're gonna level up your intellect on the character screen on level up, you can't go above this value. But 17 is enough to have plenty of spells on your hybrid wizard character, which helps you cast some buffs while still remaining a very versatile fighter. It's a great item to have also to increase your skill checks in Arcana, History, Religion and Nature. It can be very easily missed if you won't fight the Ogres in Act 1, because it's their leader that wear it and some dialogue with him might actually hint at it, why is he so smart. So you can get it in two ways, either in the first encounter just kill the Ogres, or after you convince to show up to help you in your encounters, you can simply kill them afterwards. A fight with them will also trigger if you summon them without any enemies around. Another very handy item to have, especially if you don't plan to have Shadowheart in your party, is the Silver Pendant. All it does is give you guidance as a cantrip on your necklace slot, but yeah, most of us know how helpful guidance is in the game. Providing a 1d4 bonus to all your checks in conversation and throughout the world is very helpful to have, so this simple item is very good to keep around. You get it in the forest in Act 1 if you follow the path to the cliffs. It's the same location as the little spider boys that are hiding in a cave on top of it, and you have to pass some checks in order to get some useful potions. Another very early game item that you can get is the Hellriders Pride gloves. What they do is when you heal a creature, you're gonna get a free Blade Ward spell cast on you, which is great especially for early game as it's gonna reduce your incoming damage by 50% from bludgeoning, piercing and slashing damage. And later if you're gonna get an area of effect heal like the level 3 spell from the cleric, and there's also a pendant that actually gives this spell, or if you play the Oath of the Ancient Paladin, you're also gonna have an AoE heal. It's a very strong item early on. How you get it is after you get to the Druid Grove, simply talk to Zevlor and then try to sneak up on him and steal it from him. In the case here, he got punched in the face in the conversation, so it was super easy to do, but it's also easy in a variety of different ways as well. Or if you really want to go the goody way, you can just wait for the finish of the questline with the tieflings and he's gonna give it to you for free. But depending on how you're gonna tackle your quests in Act 1, it can be a fair bit later in Act 1. And speaking of stealing, another ring that is great for it is the Smugglers Ring. What it does is gives you +2 on stealth checks and also +2 on sleight of hand checks. And also -1 charisma temporarily, but we don't really care about it when we're gonna steal some stuff. Because once you unequip it, of course this -1 charisma will go away. A very handy item to keep around. And you find it by heading south of the Risen Road waypoint. It's going to be down the river near some bushes. It can be quite easily missed as it is hiding on this skeleton in this little bush. Speaking of other thievery items, before you enter the Druid Groves, you're gonna land yourself in a fight with the goblins, and one of them will drop the Gloves of Power. And not only do they provide a free Bane most of the time on your melee character, they also give a +1 to sleight of hands checks. So another great item for your dexterity based characters. Another simple but great gloves are the Gloves of Archery, and what they do is give you the shortbow and longbow proficiencies while also boosting your damage with ranged weapons by +2. They might seem simple, but actually additive bonus of damage in this game is a very good effect, and it scales very nicely throughout the game. So if you're ever gonna plan a ranged character, those are very handy to have. And you get them by simply trading with the goblin at the goblin camp. Grud the Trader actually has two more great items, namely the Whispering Promise. He also has the infamous Returning Pike, which is the pike that returns to your hands after you throw it. It's actually a great weapon for throwing builds and it does a lot of damage with throwing boosts. So when you visit the Goblin Camp, make sure to grab those 3 items at the very least. In the same location you can also get the Crusher's Ring from Crusher, which gonna increase your movement speed by 3 meters. Another deceptively simple item that can be great on your melee characters. Another ring is the Whispering Promise, which can be looted from Volo early on, but Rad the Trader at the Goblin Camp has it as well. And what it does is basically gives you a free bless when you heal a character. An extremely powerful effect on your clerics, because now you don't have to concentrate on your bless spell, instead you just heal a creature, and preferably with an AoE spell like the Healing Ward, and you will apply a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws for 2 turns. A very handy item to have on your healers. And staying at the gloves topic while also staying in the Goblin Camp, we have the gloves of the Growling Underdog. Those are simply great, and I can't believe you can get them in the game so early. They give you advantage on your attack rolls while you're surrounded by 2 or more enemies, which happens quite a lot, especially at the higher difficulties. It basically gives you the Barbarian's reckless attack feature without being a barbarian, and also without the penalty of enemies having advantage on you. So those are some great gloves on a melee character. They also somewhat offset the Great Weapon Master penalty, so if you plan to take this feat, they are even better. And you get them behind the Hobgoblin boss in the Goblin Camp, in the item hoard stash behind him, and you can either lockpick your way into it or just kill the boss for the key. Another ones are gloves of missile snaring, which lets you intercept missiles from ranged weapon attacks, reducing their damage by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier. It's especially handy on tactician difficulty when enemies, especially archers, gonna focus your backline of wizards and sorcerers, because it can reduce the incoming damage by a lot. And they are sold in the Druid Grove by Aaron, one of the first traders you're gonna meet in the game. Now let's talk a bit about the jewelry in the game. First up, we have the Caustic Band, another deceivingly simple item that adds 2 acid damage to any of your attacks. But it is actually a great item, especially on your dual wielding characters and dual crossbow builds, because it adds this 2 damage to every one of your attacks. So once you get going with more attacks in the game, it actually gets even better. And that goes for all the rings and items in the game that adds flat damage to your attacks. They scale pretty nicely and also provide some additional different damage types, and you get this ring from the vendor in the Myconid village in the Underdark. Staying in the Myconid village, this gentleman also sells you a very powerful ring early on, especially for your healers. This one will increase all of your healing by +2. Again, it might not seem like much, but trust me, it adds up. Another a bit similar ring is the Strange Conduit Ring, which adds from 1 to 4 damage to your attacks as well while you're concentrating on a spell. So a bit more specific item because it requires you to concentrate on a spell, but if you're playing a ranger, for example, with Hunter's Mark, or a bard and you're gonna focus on some concentrating spell all the time anyway, it's a great item when you're gonna go into melee, because again, it's just gonna add some flat damage to your attacks. And you find it a bit later in the game in the Githyanki Crash, and this place is actually filled with some great items that will serve you for quite a while. So next up we have the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, and what it does is adds your spellcasting modifier to your damage rolls while dealing elemental damage with a cantrip. So for example, your fireballs suddenly gonna hurt a lot more. It's a great item that will actually synergize with some other hefty cantrip items you find later in the game. On its own, it's also great if you want to save your more potent spells for the more severe situations, but it's a great item because it allows you to keep your better damaging spells when you need them most, while still dealing respectable damage from your cantrips or even very high damage. And you find them in the same room in the Githyanki Crash. And yet another item found in this place is the Skinburster Halberd. As many other items that we already talked about, it might seem deceptively simple or even not that good. But hear me out, it is a +1 halberd with the Forced Conduit ability built into it. And it's a great effect similar to Blade Ward that when you're gonna use this weapon, you're actually gonna be resistant to slashing, bludgeoning and piercing damage. So imagine combining it with a barbarian who already has reduction when he rages, and suddenly you can be immune to those 3 most common damage types in the game. A very powerful weapon to equip on your tanks in the front line. Not only that, when you're gonna stack 5 of those Forced Conduit on yourself, you're actually gonna do AoE damage, area of effect, force damage to enemies around you. A very powerful weapon, and on top of that it's a polearm, so it's gonna stack with the polearm master feat. Staying at the Githyanki Crash, I also wanted a honorable mention to the 2 items you can get from the vendor here. They are not green items, they are actually epic items, but very simple to find, as I already mentioned. Here we can get the awesome Dexterity gloves, which sets your Dexterity to 18 and also provide a +1 to attack. You can just equip those gloves and ignore Dexterity altogether. Of course, later in the game when you're gonna reach the 20 stat mark and you will have the means to go beyond 18 Dexterity, but those can be also great on your strength characters, because now you will be able to do more reliant damage with your ranged attacks. And also some armors in the game remove the +2 limit of Dexterity, so they might provide you with even more armor. And on top of that, they can also be great on spellcasters that wish to ignore the Dexterity stat. And from the same vendor you can also get one of the first +2 items, which is this short sword, which not only is a +2 item but also has some great perks. A very good item for your rogues and the like. An honorable mention to the Diadem of Arcane synergy, which can also be found in the Githyanki Crash. It is a very powerful item currently, especially for Spellsword's character, as it increases your damage significantly from your spellcasting stat if you decide to go into melee. Because currently, inflicting a condition is very easy with pretty much any action you do in the game. Even missing an attack or even performing with your bard gives you this Arcane synergy buff, which makes you deal additional damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. So on average you get 4 or 5 more damage added to your attacks. If you are a spellsword character, of course, and you have both high strength and charisma, for example, or dexterity and wisdom as a cleric and so on. And you find it in this room after one of the major fights in this area. Truly a place with great loot to behold. And last but not least, we finally get to some boots. In this case I picked Boots of Striding. Those are great because they're gonna make you immune to prone and being moved against your own will when you are concentrating on the spell. But that's the point. Mostly when you are concentrating, you don't want to be moved or you don't want to be shoved because that's the easiest way to lose concentration. So equipping those boots solves this problem. Great boots to keep on your concentrate heavy characters. And you get them, slight spoiler from Act 1, from Mintara by either recruiting her or killing her. And the last boots for today are the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. They are pretty good if you plan to battle some spiders and the like, because you can't no longer be enwebbed, entangled or ensnared, and also cannot slip on grease or ice. And on top of that, you also gonna get Misty Step as a bonus spell. And we all know how powerful Misty Step is in this game. Well, most of us do, and if you don't, well, check it out. And you get them from Grimforge after slaying this particularly evil drow called Nier. And those are all the items I prepared for you today from Act 1. Let me know if you found it helpful, and also if I missed some of your favorite items, let me know in the comments below. Again, thank you very much for watching my videos, don't forget to subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see you again very soon.